Hello fellow modelers, Bruce here. Well, if you model anything in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you are going to need to model some outhouses for behind your structures. And since my slate run railroad is in that time frame, I do need outhouses. And I do have some kits for outhouses and I will build them. But, you know, I had this out. It's an outhouse made of plaster, and it's by Guts, Gravel, and Glory. And I was looking at it and comparing it to a 1x2 that I had laying around, and I saw that, oh, son of a gun, very reasonably comparable in size. And I thought, well, maybe I can cut some cores out of solid wood and you know, use those as the basis for my outhouses. Just put some strip wood on the outside to finish them up, and I can knock these things out quite quickly once I have the cores. So you know, I went down and got my 1x2, went out to the garage excuse me, and set the blade at 45 degrees and ran this piece of 1x2 through, turned it around and ran it through again, and got my peaked roof. And what I had then was a length of wood. It was a scrap I had that gave me an outhouse that was, or a core, that was about 5 feet wide and about 10 feet tall. And this plaster one that I had here was also 5 feet wide and 10 feet tall. So yeah, I think this is going to have some merit to knock out some outhouses pretty quickly. If it works, I'll probably find another piece of 1x2 and do the same thing. The idea of using a solid core for the basis of a model is not new. It's been around. As a matter of fact, it was fairly popular back in the day before we got so many great kits on the market. And I know there's still some modelers out there. I see them on YouTube that you know, start by going out to the shop when they have an idea for a structure a lot bigger than an outhouse, and glue some blocks of wood together and then cut them down to form the core for their building. So yeah, it's a reasonable approach, and I thought I would give it a go on these outhouses. So I'll come back, start building these, and take you along for the ride. So see you then. Alrighty, time for an update. I started by sanding all the blanks on some 150 grit sandpaper, just running each side over it in a circular fashion, including the subroofs here. Got all the fuzz off, set those aside, and had started to work on one of these. And I'll show you what I've done. Using just a black Sharpie, I blackened in where I will put the door, and I blackened in some area near the top on each of the sides of the outhouse, which will be slightly under the overhang of the roof when I get done. And I figured that I should put some kind of vent up there to let in some light and also let out the odors. The assumption being there's you know, some kind of wire mesh over that to keep critters and bugs and so forth out. And I have added the wood to one side of the outhouse as we speak. Now when you're doing something like this and you're adding wood strips on top of something, start from each outside, get those nice and even, and then work alternate sides toward the center. And that way, when you get to the center strip, if none of your wood, I have a couple various widths here, you know, 1x10s, 1x8s, 1x6s, 1x4s, stained. If one of them will not fit, then you just have to cut one in the middle, which is a lot less obvious than if you have it on the ever crucial outside edge. So one of the four sides done, and now I'll do this side, then the back, and then finally the front. So I let these extend long, I cut them off later, and then sand everything down, sand the sides nice and flush, come up on the roof and slide that at an angle so that the subroof, when I put it on, will fit over good. And that side's done, and we move on. I'll talk to you then. Alrighty, we have 3 of the 4 walls all covered in. Here's the rear wall, one side wall with that vent near the top, the other side wall, the vent near the top, and now I am working on the front wall. I have 2 strips on either side of the doorway, still extending up above the roof level, so when they're dry I just lay it down and take a number 11 blade here and carefully cut it off. And the other side as well. And tidy it up a little bit with a sanding stick. And we're good. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to fill in above the doorway, letting them stick up above again. And when they're dry, I will cut off the excess, put door trim around all 3 sides of the door, and then finally build the door directly onto the black magic marker down below. So this really is a quick way to get an outhouse, and with the number that I have to build, it sure makes sense. You know, I already have a couple of other kits with 3 to 5 outhouses in them, and I'll certainly build those. Some variety of shapes. This Guts Gravel Glory double outhouse in plaster is one example. So this kit had 2 other outhouses in it, singles, and quite a few of the old Campbell kits, if they gave you, grandma's house or farmhouse, they would include an outhouse in that too, because again, in that time period, there was no indoor plumbing. So you'll see me build those at some point. But in the meantime, to crank out a handful, nothing beats this. Just stain up a bunch of strip wood, and pretty much in 45 minutes of sitting. You talk about a one-night project. There's a one-night project right there. All right, I'll show you what it looks like when I get up to the door. Talk to you then. Okay, we have the basic outhouse all covered with wood and the door done in, and it's now time to put the subroof on and then the roofing material. As I crank these out, these are perfect kind of one-night projects. In one night you could put quite a few of these together actually. The next step is to put a subroof on that has an overhang in all directions, and then decide on a roofing material. And all of these are going to look pretty much the same, but I can certainly change the roofing material as we go from outhouse to outhouse. And since roofs always attract our attention, that's a good way to make them look a little bit different. So yeah, I figure I'll do one in tar paper and probably do one in corrugated metal. Could do one in overlapping wood boards, do one in Campbell shingles and look like a shake roof, and maybe one even in slate. And you might say, a slate roof on an outhouse? I have the pictures back in Bangor, Pennsylvania. My wife and I were driving down the street, and we looked in the backyard of a house, and there was still an outhouse standing. It was no longer in use as an outhouse, but the reason it was standing, in all likelihood, is the fact that it had a slate roof that kept that thing very nice and dry and stable underneath. So, yeah, these are some ideas I have. I'm going to do this one in tar paper. Subroof material, my usual, you know, go to, in this case, a Bubba Burger box, and the back of it, as many boxes are nowadays, are colored kind of in a mottled brown that almost looks like wood. That'll be the underside, and the top side will have this printing which will be covered with the tar paper. So I cut these out, but none of the sides are really square, so the idea is to start by getting one good square, not square necessarily, but flat and unwavy side. So I know I'm going to need at least 9 feet of subroofing to go up and over this thing, and so that's, I'm starting out with a cut about 11 feet in, and let's get everything pretty much pressed down as much as I can here, and we'll give it a good cut, and at least I know this is one straight surface here. Okay, so you know, this side might be wavy from my scissor cut when I cut up the original box, and we don't know these, but I do know this is nice and flat now. And so I will give it another cut to get myself a good 90-degree angle on one end here. And now we know this is a 90-degree angle. And as I look at this and measure it, it's the 5 feet that we started with, and I want a little bit of an overhang on each, off the left and the right of that, but not much. So if I made it about 5 3/4, that would be enough of an overhang. So I'll just make a pencil mark at that point. So if I now cut this strip here, that'll be 5 3/4. Okay. So looking at that, we have a bit of an overhang on the left and the right, and I want it to overhang down here a bit too. So that roof is 4 feet. So if I was to make it even 4.5 to 4 3/4 on each side here. So if we made it 4 3/4 and you double that, it's going to be 9.5 feet. So let me make a mark there. And I will now cut that. And there's my subroof. So overhang on each side, and now I want to find the center of that and make a ridge line. So that's my 9.5 feet, so it would be 4 3/4 is the center line. Mark that a couple places here. Okay, so I'm going to now etch that so I can fold it on that line. So I use the back side of my X-Acto knife and run down it a few times. And there is my subroof. And now I will cut the tar paper into strips and put it on. I'll come back and show you what I'm doing. Well, here's the first one to roll off the assembly line. Tar paper roof, lightly weathered with a mossy green with chalks. And there's those vents on the side under the overhangs. And yeah, I'll just use this as a kind of a test run and now start cranking the rest of those out. I still have 4 more blanks here and certainly more wood to make more. So you'll see these pop up in my scenes as we move on into the scenery phase of the Slate Run Railroad. So, yep, it's good one-night projects using an old technique of building over a solid core. Well, I really want to thank everybody who has stuck with me through these 150 videos so far. And as always, if you enjoyed the video or maybe picked up an idea or two, why not give it a thumbs up? And if you have not already done so, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. All of these things help my channel. Alright, talk to you again soon.